Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
Okay, so Father, you heard the intro. I thought we could talk first about your work with the president that you're doing.
Okay.
And then also we could talk a little bit about the reaction.
Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world.
Welcome back. Phone lines are open, 877-573-7825. Father Frank Pavone, National Director of Priests for Life, author, speaker, and noted pro-life activist on the front lines for decades in the pro-life movement. And now, FF, you've added another title to your business card, which is growing ever larger, and you're working with the president on a special new effort to advance pro-life causes this year. Tell us about it. Good morning.
Well, good morning. Yes, this is actually a pro-life initiative that everyone can join in on. I'm very happy to be able to mention this. Pro-life Voices for Trump. Now, what this means is that all of us listening out there who know that this is the greatest pro-life president that we've had, or maybe you've heard that but you're not sure why we say that, or maybe you know of some of his pro-life accomplishments but not all of them. Pro-Life Voices for Trump is meant to unite pro-life people across the country to say, wow, all the things we believe in this pro-life movement, we're making great progress here in what the administration has done. So it's an effort to help people to know that progress, appreciate that progress, and then rally around the president so that we can continue that progress. So there's a couple of ways people can connect. I'm privileged to be the co-chair of this national effort. Our friend Marjorie Dannenfelser, Susan B. Anthony List, with whom I've collaborated for decades also, is the other co-chair. And so the two of us, together with a core of national pro-life leaders, are involved in this effort. And if you go to our main election site, prolifevote.com, you'll see some info about this. Janet, by the way, Janet Morana, is also a member of this advisory board for Pro-Life Voices, as is Alveda King. So, but again, it's something we're the advisory board, but it's something for everyone to join. And if people want to connect with this, they can text the word life to 88022. So if you text the word life to 88022, you become part of this Pro-Life Voices for Trump. So, Teresa, it's so important that people see that what has actually been accomplished. Because if we don't know the progress that we've made, we're missing out, first of all, on the joy and the satisfaction of realizing, we're further along here in our goal than we may have thought. And then secondly, we would be missing out on the motivation, to keep fighting even harder.
How's significant is it, and you've been at, I don't know how many marches, and many more than I have. I've been going for well over 10 years. But how significant is it to have the President of the United States, leader of the free world, speak at the March for Life?
Oh,
I haven't spoken to you since then because I was on the cruise.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, it's very significant because, first of all, it shows his own commitment to this cause. I mean, he didn't have to do that, obviously. Other presidents, even if those that have been pro-life, have called in by telephone to the March for Life. He came personally. It shows a real strong personal conviction and commitment, and I can tell you that it is a strong, sincere commitment to this cause. But it also shows how far the cause has come. For the president to be at an event like this, whose explicit purpose is to restore protection to the unborn. You know, a president's not going to go to an event like this unless this movement has made significant headway in America, and it's a signal that he understands what so many of us understand, that this is indeed the direction America is moving. So very significant on those levels. And then to take his words, you know, obviously his speech is out there. You can get it online. You can get it on our website and elsewhere. Go back to it and listen to it again. Read the text. Use it. Quote it. Use it to encourage the pro-life people in your community, because I'm sure we have many local pro-life leaders listening to us. You may have a parish group or a county group or whatever it is. Use the president's words as an ongoing encouragement to the movement.
We check in every week with Father Frank Pavone, National Director of Priests for Life, and he is talking to us regarding not only the State of the Union, but also the March for Life. Going into the State of the Union now, Father, what did you think in terms of his address and his comments on partial birth abortion?
Well, the address was epic. Epic was the word that kept going through my mind. It was one of the best addresses in history, certainly one of the best State of the Union addresses. So positive about America, so concrete and detailed. I mean, you can be positive and be just saying platitudes, but he was positive and then giving very concrete, a long litany of the way America is stronger and safer and more prosperous and more respected, and the courts are changing and respecting our liberties. You see what he said about religious freedom. You know, we don't ban prayer, or we don't tear down crosses, we don't muzzle pastors in America. I mean, this, for those of us, I mean, you can listen to those words and say, oh, wow, yeah, that's right, I agree with that. But to know the history that we are just very recently coming out of, in fact, we're still in the midst of various battles over things precisely like this, you realize that for him to say things like this, we are at literally a major turning point. In fact, many of the evils that we face in our society, the moral corruption, people will trace it back to, hey, well, listen, when the courts in the 60s, you know, you take out prayer from the public schools, you take out Bible reading from the public schools, what do you think you're going to be left with? If you can no longer post the commandments in a classroom that say you shall not kill, don't you think that you're going to be surprised when students start killing students? I mean, this is... And then he said in the State of the Union, he talked about prayer in public schools. He talked about the right to pray. So, I mean, it was epic. Now, you mentioned about his reference to abortion. And he had, as presidents since Ronald Reagan have done, is to introduce special guests during the State of the Union that epitomize certain accomplishments of the presidential administration. He had a mom and a baby there. 2-year-old baby who was born at only 21 weeks and 6 days. Now, we know from our medical advisors here at Priests for Life and in the entire pro-life movement that the age of viability is getting earlier and earlier. And now, 22 weeks is not, an insignificant number of survivals when you can have the right, medical intervention and whatnot. So this was a healthy girl introduced there, and of course the message being, right when he introduced her and talked about neonatal care and Congress giving more money for that, as he's urging them to do. But the fact is, then he called on Congress to end the practice of late-term abortion, the implication being, obviously, the babies at that very same age are being killed. Healthy babies of healthy mothers are being killed.
Right.
So very significant.
Yeah, I thought it was very well stated. The thing that I think is so interesting, we've been talking about this, Father, over the phone in their emails in prep for the show, and Kevin Burke was on with me yesterday in the National Hour commenting on this and giving us his reaction.
Mm-hmm.
The connection between post-abortion syndrome, the fallout from abortion, the evil of abortion, and the reaction that we're seeing with certain politicians and many people on the left, regardless of what party they are in, and this level of hatred and vitriol that we've never really seen before. When you look at Nancy Pelosi's antics with ripping up the speech, they've been very, very critical, and a lot of Republicans have been critical of the president because, let's say, he's not your typical president in terms of the way he responds, and some of his tweets haven't been very nice. Okay, fine. But why is it that the left gets to do whatever they want and treat people and make all kinds of comments, and that's fine? And for example, I read one liberal article yesterday, a column that a liberal commentator made, saying that Nancy Pelosi and Democrats, the liberals, had the last word because of what she did, ripping up the speech.
Yeah, sure. The right word showing out. Yeah, right. Listen, first of all, I would rather have a president who sends out a tweet that I don't like than who signs a law that I don't like. I would rather have a president who has a tweet that's not so great than a judge that's not so great that he put on the court. So I think people are often asking the wrong questions. It's like,
Well, they're only focusing on him versus other politicians who are doing the same or much worse.
Well, that's right. And the election that we're in the midst of now cannot be about the personalities. It's got to be about the policies. That's why, again, this State of the Union address is so good. You look at the actual accomplishments and ask yourself, is this or is this not the direction you want America to go? Lowest unemployment ever? I mean, is that or is that not what you want? 7 million new jobs, is that or is that not what you want? Good trade deals so that companies are coming back to America instead of running out of the country. I mean, what is it that we want as the direction of this country? Now, the other side should be able, here's, Teresa, you talk about the head exploding moments. How can you possibly have a Congress where half the people sitting in that room or more are Democrats, right? And the president talks about lowest unemployment rates ever for African Americans and so many other subsets of our population, and the increase of jobs and the increase of security, the booming economy, et cetera, and have them sit there stone-faced, not even stone-faced, with pusses on their face, and not even applaud. So what is it that would make you applaud? Would you be applauding, standing and applauding, if the president said, unfortunately, our unemployment rates are higher than ever? Is that what you want? So there's an irrationality here. And this is what Kevin, like you say, was getting at. He did a great article on this recently. And people,
aborting the president.
Aborting the president.
About it, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That the grief, that there is a grief here. When you this is the party of abortion, Democrat Party. You don't embrace abortion without doing serious damage to yourself. And this is, Kevin says, psychologically, this is what's happening. It's warping their judgment and depriving them of right reason.
Well, if you look at some of the statements, for example, if you look at what Pelosi did with the speech, which was, it was really childish.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that in my life. And then her facial contortions when she was sitting there behind the president. But then when you have Adam Schiff saying that the president is going to give away Alaska to the Russians and move down to Mar-a-Lago permanently so his son or son-in-law can take over. That's not rational.
It's not rational.
Those aren't rational statements. What's going on?
It's not. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's not rational to say the baby in the womb is not human. It's not rational to say.
Good point.
It is. It's part of the same irrationality. This is literally a break with reality. Our friend Dr. Philip Ney, Canadian psychiatrist, and many other psychiatrists and psychologists that work with us in the pro-life movement, they will literally say, and this is not meant to be a personal attack or an insult on people, but they will just objectively, literally say that when a person takes the mindset that the baby in the womb is not a baby, Okay, that is a denial of reality. That's not simply an opinion. That's not something that you can just say, oh, well, everybody has their views on abortion. No, 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 no. People have a right to their own opinions, but they don't have a right to their own facts. That's a baby. And the mindset that this is not a baby is literally a break from reality. It's in the same category as if you say the earth is flat. Now, this is just objective fact. So psychologically, what do we call a break from reality? Well, that's the measure of mental illness, right? I mean, we all have little, everyday quirks and minor breaks from reality, and we call that neurosis, Remember that book a long time ago, We Neurotics? We all have our quirks and so forth. But it's a spectrum, and the further you break with reality, eventually it goes into psychosis, and real mental illness. This is what we're dealing with here. So if you have an entire party that embraces the premise that, well, not only, it's not simply the idea that it's not a baby. It's even more fantasy than that. It's that it's a baby if you want it to be, and it's not a baby if you don't want it. I mean, this is fairy tale stuff. So the problem is that if you can break with reality, you can break with reality. If you can be unreasonable and irrational on that, you can be irrational on anything. And this is what we're seeing.
Is this also, Father, in addition to the post-abortion syndrome that you and Kevin have been speaking about, is it also this lack of God? And I'm not judging them. I'm just saying in terms of if you don't have God, you have to replace it with something else, another religion.
Yes, that's right. Oh, well, what is their point of reference? What is their what is their center of gravity? I mean, these people, and again, I'm talking about the Democrat Party. There's some people in the Democratic Party that are pro-life. Well, let's. Oh, yes.
The grassroots. There are some Republicans who are the grassroots. Of the abortion movement and those who are pushing for this. I don't want to say every single Democrat because there are. I heard from a woman yesterday who's a Democrat and she's pro-life, and she said she's appalled at the behavior. I mean, we were talking about this yesterday in the program, and she said these people are poisoned and their hatred is just out of control. So I don't want to lump all Democrats into it, but we're talking about these people who are supporting abortion through 9 months of pregnancy and beyond.
Right, who don't represent that there's like 21 million, out in the grassroots, pro-life Democrats. But in Congress, you've got these folks who are, A, not representing the pro-life people, but B, they're not representing what America itself. In other words, when you look at the steps that were taken in this now, praise God, finished, impeachment process, right? So the president was fully acquitted yesterday afternoon. So this is finished now. But when you look at the way they conducted it, and then you go back further and look at the way that the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings were conducted, there is a problem here. And in fact, you heard it even in regard to the Senate trial that just finished. This notion that either Brett Kavanaugh or Donald Trump or anybody else has to prove their innocence. Now, what's wrong with that? I mean, all of us, when we hear that, a big alarm should be going off in our mind. You have to prove your innocence. What do you mean? I don't have to prove my innocence about anything. The person accusing us or them has to prove their guilt.
The prosecution has to prove a case. Yeah, that's just basic law.
And this is a basic working presumption of Western civilization, right? You're innocent.
And they're all lawyers. This is what cracks me up.
Yeah.
Lawyers who are these things.
Well, you're innocent until proven guilty. But see, here's the point. And you were talking about, the irrationality that's on display here. When you overturn that basic principle of justice and of civilization and of America and of due process and of our whole system of law and justice, then what's wrong with you? I mean, how can you even do that? I mean, have they actually forgotten the principle of innocent until proven guilty? Or are they, in a very evil, sinister way, deliberately twisting it and overturning it? I mean, either they're just they're worse than a fifth grade student who's just learning something about civics, or they're involved in some kind of sinister effort to overturn this. I mean, neither of those options is very good.
Yeah, and Nancy Pelosi talking about how this isn't a real, this wasn't a real trial because there were no witnesses.
Oh, for
But wait a
goodness
minute.
sake.
It's the House's job to have the trial, and the Senate basically is the jury. This is not news. This is basic civics 101.
They called all the witnesses they wanted to call in that House process, and then they didn't let the Republican side call witnesses, and then they go to the Senate and they say, "Oh well, you guys call the witness." This is, this is head exploding stuff.
Yeah, it is. All right. So what do we do as Catholics? How do we respond to all this?
Well, first of all, of course, we always say we continue to pray for our country. Obviously, we need to do that. But we really need to think as much as we need to pray. I want to urge people, go back to Civics 101. Those man-in-the-street interviews you see, whether it's Jesse Waters or any number of people who have done these, these interviews on the streets of the common people who it's scary, that they don't know the three branches of government. They don't know the name of the Vice President of the United States. They don't know who their senators are. We have to all, if the more we can take hold again of how this nation is built, the more we'll appreciate it, we'll love it. And this is a perfect time to do it. Not only is it an election year, but we've been in the news, as we've been discussing here, so many things that have happened that point us back to what are the basic presumptions about how our system works. We have to study. And of course, this information is more at our fingertips than ever before with Google and the internet and everything. Study, think clearly. It's what the bishops urge us to do, Teresa, in their documents about voting, especially Living the Gospel of Life, that document, where they say analyze campaign rhetoric critically, listen to what's being said, but then analyze it critically. And this is the time really for us to beef up on our understanding of civics, American government, American history, and we'll be better off for it as Catholics, because good Catholics are called to be good citizens.
Well, listen, great discussion. I know we're running you late because you have staff meetings, and also want to wish you a belated happy birthday.
Yes, thank you.
Father Frank Pavone, which was Tuesday, February 4th. Thanks so much for all your great work. God bless you, and many, many, many more years. So get back to work and get that whip cracking, Father, and I know your team is going to be busy today, and we'll check in with you next week.
Very good. Talk to you soon.
Father Frank Pavone, National Director.